I think the value of CTV as an ad channel for marketers is that it's the best of television and the best of digital combined. So when you think about what those two things mean, the best of television, obviously it's the largest screen, it's a captive audience, it's high definition, high resolution, and the ability for digital to add things like advanced targeting, dynamic creative capabilities, and interactivity to that screen creates an enormous opportunity for advertisers.
Okay. So Innovid and Target, Roundel just released a report. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this is the second year that Innovid and Roundel have partnered in the CTV X Commerce report. And the report looks at trends both from a Target shopper perspective. So Target shopper created a survey to look at viewing trends for their customers in CTV. And then it takes Innovid data as the largest ad server within CTV, literally billions and billions of impressions. In fact, 1.4 billion impressions a day. Just over half of those end up on CTV devices. So when we look at the ability for us to understand that data set, what we see in CPG. So the report is a combination of the Target shopper survey data around their viewing behaviors in CTV and the Innovid data from the CPG vertical.
What are some of the findings that surprised you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's many surprises. However, there's a lot of validation in terms of the overall trends that we observe as an ad delivery platform, and some of the things that we see from a behavioral perspective from just us as consumers. I love asking people how they watch television, and the answers to that question are quite diverse in terms of who you're asking it to and the types of responses you get. It might be, I sit down at a certain time and I watch news, or I look at sports, or it might be watching TV is laying in my bed with my laptop or on my phone while commuting. The definition of TV has changed so dramatically over the last couple of years because viewers are shifting to ways in which, and because of the shifting dynamics in viewing behavior. And so while nothing was quite surprising, it did validate a lot of those. The Target shopper survey data found that their customers are streaming more than last year. In fact, there was a 40% increase in the number of hours that they were streaming month over month, year over year in terms of the comparison. On average, about 22 hours a week across different ad-supported services. And then, of course, when you look at the Innovid data set within CPG is delivering billions of impressions annually in the CTV space. About 25% of those, about 25% of the campaigns that we deliver for CPG are ending up on CTV devices.
How are consumers and also advertisers starting to think of CTV as a shoppable channel?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think ultimately the perception of television has always been that it's a awareness play, that it's a reach driver, and I think when advertisers approach television that way and the shifting dynamics around the definitions of what television actually is today for customers and consumers, you can see that there's this connection between driving awareness and then using CTV and the interactivity that CTV enables by way of those devices being connected to the internet, creating more of a mid and lower funnel strategy as well. So not only is it this wonderfully tested and proven awareness driver, but now it's becoming a direct response medium.
And beyond the QR code, how can brands effectively leverage interactive and dynamic creative options?
Yeah, this is the best of digital now influencing television that we spoke about earlier. And so when it comes to interactivity, using the remote so that you can engage with a carousel of products, as an example, is something we see quite commonly within the CPG vertical. So you might be a house of brands, or you might be a brand that has multi-products within a category, allowing the user to engage with that piece of creative and explore different products within. That's one way interactivity is getting leveraged today to satisfy some of the needs of CPG marketers. The other way is when we think about dynamic, and what dynamic can do is personalize the impression. So if you're a CPG advertiser, you may want to, there may be signals like location or time of day or weather that would influence the message you'd like to deliver. And now you can do that in television thanks to CTV being connected to the internet.
Okay. And so what advice can you give to advertisers looking into Shoppable?
Yep. In terms of advice, the CTV X Commerce report that we just co-published with Target Roundel has a ton of best practices in the back of it. And within that, you'll see a couple, but I can share a few here. When it comes to QR codes and enabling that commerce experience, in terms of best practices for advertisers who are looking into Shoppable, I think the CTV X Commerce report that Innovid co-published with Roundel has a bunch of creative best practices in it. So be sure to download that. In addition, I'll share a few here. When it comes to Shoppable capabilities, they're usually activated by leveraging a QR code. So the QR code will be on screen. We recommend keeping it on screen for the duration of the ad slot. So if it's a 15-second slot, get it in there as fast as possible so the user has time to get their phone out, open their camera, scan and tap the link. And also be very clear with the call to action. So if it's an add to cart action that QR code will activate, make sure your call to action is scanned to add to cart, or anything that's indicative of the actual outcome that's going to occur. The best practices within Shoppable CTV Creative, the CTV X Commerce report that Innovid co-published with Roundel has quite a few best practices in it. I'll share a couple here. Make your call to action definitive. Scan to add to cart, scan to shop, scan to pickup order. That way the customer knows what they're getting in return for that QR scan. As it relates to QR codes, we recommend keeping them on screen as long as possible. So if it's a 15-second spot or a 30-second spot, make sure that it's on screen to give the user enough time to take their phone out of their pocket, open their camera app, and scan the QR code within the experience.